Okay. Om Sada Shiva Samarambha Shankaracharya Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so we'll continue with where we left off. We had finished verse mantra number 10. And now we will look at mantra number 11. We will chant Atmanam Marinim Kritva
Atmanam aranim krutva
Pranavam Chottararinam
Pranavam Jyotaranidam
Jnana Nirmathanabhyasat
Jnananirmatanabhyasat
Pasham Dahati Panditaha.
Pasham Dharati Panditaha.
So look at the words. Atmanam Kritva. So this Atmanam here is the mind, not Satchit Ananda Atmanam. That we should remember. So making the mind, Arinim. So Arinim, I'll explain that, is a wooden piece. In fact, there are two Aranis. These are two wooden pieces which are used for traditionally for rubbing against each other to make the Vedic fire. So there is a lower Arani and there is a upper Arani also, right? So the lower Arani is, here it is being talked about as the lower piece, the wooden piece which is used for making the fire. What should you do? Pranavam Uttara Arani. Pranava is the Omkara. Uttaram means upper or the north. So upper. Uttara Arani means the upper Arani. So it is the rod which is put in the lower bowl, the lower wooden bowl, and then rubbed together so that the fire is formed. So the Pranavam, the Om is the upper Arani and the mind is the lower Arani. Then what should you do? Jnana Nirmathana Abhyasa. By the practice of churning, which is in the form of Jnanam only. So what is this churning? Nirmathanam, you know what it is, right? It is a churning of, you can make it churning of water, churning of milk, churning of curds, whatever. So here he is saying that using the mind as the lower vessel and using the pranavam as the upper arani, the one which is going to churn inside the lower vessel, what should you do? Jnana nirmathana abhyasat. You should practice the churning of the mind. That churning of the mind is in what form? Jnana. It's in the form of knowledge only. And abhyasa here means it is the practice. So regular practice of churning the mind in the form of jnana. And then what will happen? Panditaha, the wise person, dahati pasham. Pasham is literally the noose. So the noose of bondage, dahati, burns down. The wise man will burn down the noose of bondage, which means he will get Jivan Mukti. So here in this portion, the teacher, who is Lord Brahmaji, is talking about what we call Shravanam and Mananam, right? So Atma Vichara, when we say, it is nothing but Shastra Vichara. Enquiry into the Atma is nothing but enquiry into the Shastra. So looking into the Atma is looking into the Shastram only. There is no other way of looking at the Atma, because it is only the Shastram which tells you what the Atma is. And the imagery here is that when you look at the mirror, for all practical purposes, what are you looking at? You are looking at your face. So Darpana Darshanam is Mukha Darshanam. Mukha meaning the face. Similarly, here you have to extend this example. Shastra Darshanam, looking into the Shastra, is nothing but Atma Darshanam. And here a good example is given, a beautiful example is given. Jnanam is being compared to the fire, Agnihi, and Shravanam, the act of listening to the teacher, the act of listening to the Shastram, it is being compared to lighting the fire. And to know what is this Arani, one should remember that traditionally the fire for a Vedic ritual cannot be kindled in any manner but as prescribed in the Shastra. And Shastra prescribes that the sacred fire should be brought from Surya Bhagavan. So that is one way. You can use Surya Bhagavan's heat through a magnifying lens and you can kindle the fire. But they also prescribe another popular method which is called Arani Mathanam, very often mentioned in the scriptures. So in this method, there are two pieces of wood. One is called Adho Aranihi and one is called Uttara Aranihi. The Adho Arani is the lower piece of wood that does not move. It's a small piece of wood which is with a hole in the middle, And the Uttara Arani is basically a rod. This rod fits into that hole and then we churn it around. Like Mathanam, like the word Mathanam you have heard in that story of Samudra Mathanam, right? Similarly. So the rod being churned, like the rod which you use to churn in the milk to produce butter, that is the Arani. So this particular Arani is what? The Uttara Arani is Pranava, Om, Omkara. That Omkara you are going to use to fit into the mind, which is the other Arani. And then you keep on churning till the butter of Jnanam is produced. Traditionally, when you use the two pieces, the Adho Arani and Uttara Arani, what happens is when you churn it sufficiently enough, a few sparks are born. And this Adho Arani is kept on very dry grass. So that dry grass, what happens is when these sparks are born by churning, the dry grass catches fire. And then the fire in the dry grass is transferred directly to the Homa Kunda without any other intermediation. And it is the fire that is kindled in this manner that should receive all the offerings, all the oblations. And here this mantra is saying Veda Vichara is very similar to the Arani Mathanam process. Why is Jnanam compared to a lamp? What is the common feature between Jnanam and Agni? So removal of darkness. The fire removes the darkness which covers an object. So we say that the object is not seen because darkness has got the Avarna Shakti. We are all familiar with that term, right? It covers whatever exists, making it look as if it is non-existent. And thus, we don't come to know of the presence of that object, even though it exists, because it is being covered by the darkness. So if you enter a dark room, you are not aware that there is a stool in the middle somewhere, and not being aware of that stool's existence, you fall over the stool. So darkness is a hindrance to clear vision. Similarly, we are saying here that ignorance, ajnanam, it covers an existing thing. And this ignorance is which one? The specific ignorance we're talking about, Atma Ajnanam. It covers what? It covers the Atma Swarupam. Thus, making us lose sight of the fact of the presence of the Atman. And therefore, we require this Agnihi, this lamp of knowledge, to remove the ignorance. This is the first common feature. And you must remember that is the reason why in all Indian traditions, anything starts with the lighting of a lamp. So that is the first feature. And the second feature is illumination. Fire reveals an existing thing, so just as Jnanam reveals the existence of Atman. Jnanam does not bring about the existence of Atman. Atman is ever existing. But Jnanam reveals the existence of the Atman to us. And so he says, Atmanam arinim kritva. Make the mind the lower arani, adho arani. And the adho arani is normally fixed in a place. So this mind also has to be like the lower arani, steady, unmoving. And the adho arani is usually dry, because without a dry arani, the sparks cannot be generated. And this dryness of the adho arani is compared to the vairagyam in the student's mind. So unless the student's mind is vairagi mind, you will not have the spark of knowledge being generated. So here the Upanishad says, the mind of the student is a lower arani, and just like the adho arani remains unmoving, the student's mind has to be steady. It cannot be wandering around. And that is why the student requires a purified mind, which we call chitta shuddhi. And it has to be steady and unwavering, sthairiam. Vikshepa has to be conquered. And that is why Upasana Yoga is prescribed. So, Atmanam Arinim Kritva. Make the mind the lower arani. And Pranavam cha Uttara arani. Pranavam is the Omkara mantra. It can serve as the churning rod. And here, what is the churning? The churning is only the vichara, the enquiry. Because in the mind, when we enquire, the mind is churned. And that is the vichara here talked about. So we can also use Mahavakya mantras for vichara. Okay. So here, while Pranavam refers to Omkara, it can be also be referring to the Mahavakyams or to an appropriate Upanishad mantra also. In short, the words of the scripture, the words of the Shastra, of the Upanishads, Shruti Vakyam, they are the Pranavam, they are the upper arani, the Omkara. And this churning has to be done not once, not twice, but regularly. And that's why we say Shravanam is not meant to be done Saturday to Saturday. It has to be repeated regularly for you. Until regularly Shravanam is done, the churning does not take place. And as we said, the upper arani is nothing but the words of the Shastram, the Mahavakyam, the mantras. And this churning, which the upper arani is used for, you take the Mahavakyam and then you churn it in the mind. Means what? You are analyzing the words of the Vakya, of the sentence, of the mantra. So all Upanishadic Vakyam, Shruti mantras, are capable of producing Atmagyanam. And when it is analyzed in this manner, this is Vedanta Vichara, this is Shravana. Okay, then the question is, fine, Omkara is the upper arani, the mind is the lower arani. Who is the person who is doing the churning? Who is the person who is doing the churning? Sorry?
Lower arani, Guru.
The teacher, obviously. The person who is doing the churning has to be the guru, the teacher only. And then what happens? Jnana nirmathana abhyasat pasham dahati panditaha. By the practice of this regular churning in the form of analysis of the Shastrams, the churning goes on and on. Every time you churn, every time you analyze, every time you do Shravanam, it is not a waste. The impact of the statement becomes stronger and stronger on our minds. And that's why we say, take time to analyze. You, for example, you take the Tattvamasi Mahavakyam, you take the Tvam Pada, then you separate the Vachyartham, the literal meaning, from the intended meaning, Lakshyartham. And then you understand that to have a equality, something has to be dropped. And therefore, you take the Vachyartham to reveal pure consciousness, while you take the, you take the Lakshyartham to reveal pure consciousness, while you take the Vachyartham to reveal the Saguna Brahma. Similarly, take Tat Pada and analyze that also. And then you will find that the Vachyartham is one meaning, but the Lakshyartham is the same, pure consciousness alone. And from there, you equate Tat to Tvam in terms of the pure consciousness only, and you understand that Paramatma is pure existence, I, the Jivatma, am also pure existence. Another way of looking at it is from the Samashti angle. When you take Tat, you can take Tat to refer to pure existence. And you can take Tvam, that is the Jivatma, to refer to pure consciousness. And then when you equate them both, you will find Sadeva Chit, Chideva Sat. Sat is nothing else other than Chit, and Chit is nothing other than Sat. You will find that consciousness is nothing but pure existence. Pure existence is nothing but pure consciousness. And this oneness, this identity is revealed by the third pada, which is Asi. So this kind of analysis is a very long process and is referred to here as Nirmathana, the churning. And this process of Mahavakya Vichara must be repeated again and again. So he says Abhyasa. Why? It is not enough to churn the rod once to create a spark. It requires continuous churning. Then only the spark of Jnanam is generated. And the appropriate material must be there to kindle this fire. So what is the role of the Acharya, the teacher? The Acharya has the responsibility of ensuring that the spark of Jnanam is produced. That is all that the Acharya can do. That is the Shravanam part. But the responsibility of nourishing that spark, of ensuring the spark remains alive and then develops into a major flame, that responsibility is the Shishyas alone, the students alone. The spark has to be protected initially, but slowly, it has to become stronger and stronger and stronger. And that responsibility is that of the student. Therefore, Shravanam is the responsibility of the teacher, but it has to be followed by Mananam. So between classes, between Saturday to Saturday, one should devote some time to asking oneself, am I convinced of this teaching? And if my intellect is not convinced, then I have to think further. I have to investigate further to determine what is the doubt which is remaining in my intellect. And then I have to either talk to my teacher again, or talk to my fellow students, or do my own intellectual contemplation until the last trace of any doubt vanishes from my intellect. The fact that Shruti says Tattvamasi should be firmly registered as Aham Brahmasmi. No doubt should remain of the fact that I am Brahman. When I say I am Brahman, my intellect should not laugh at me. My intellect should solely and fully accept the fact that yes, you are Brahman. Once that is done, you will find that you are possessed of a absolutely doubtless conviction that you are Brahman. But you may still find that the full benefit of Jnanam is not available to you. This is because of habitual thinking patterns, which we call vasanas or samskaras. And therefore, this Mananam should be further followed by Nididhyasanam, which is a very crucial process for changing the habitual thinking patterns, the mindset, as we call it. Without this mindset changing, right, we will continue to remain in what we call the triangular format. Even knowing without any doubt that I am Brahman, the habitual thinking patterns will ensure that I remain in the world of Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara, in what we call in our language triangular format. Nididhyasanam is that process where there is a mindset conversion. The triangular format needs to be moved or converted into the binary format. What is the binary format? Atma, Anatma, or Drik and Drishya. I am the Drik, everything else Drishya. I am Atma, everything else is Anatma. I am Ishvara, everything else is Jagat. Jiva is gone. Right. So this, why is Jiva gone? because the Jiva and the Ishvara have turned out to be the same. And therefore, two entities are not there, only one entity is there. Therefore, the triangular format has changed into the binary format. As I said, in Shravanam, the teacher plays a very prominent role. In Mananam, he still plays a role, but very limited. However, Nididhyasanam, the teacher has no role to play. It is a complete responsibility of the student alone, of the sadhaka alone. Even if he wants to, the teacher is not able to help. And that's why I said once this spark is born, the teacher's role is over. Turning that spark into a self-sustaining conflagration, a huge forest fire, which will burn anything which you put into it. That is the responsibility of the student alone. And thus the flame has to be nourished. This nourishing process is called Nididhyasanam. And therefore, Lord Brahmaji says, Pasham dahati panditaha. Panda means Atmajnanam. And Panda itaha. The one who has Panda is Panditaha, possessor of Atmajnana. That person who has understood this has gone through Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam successfully. What happens to him? The entire bondage, Pasham, is destroyed. He destroys all the materials which he uses in the Homa. If you look at the Homa example, all the oblation materials, what do? Swaha, you offer. The first and foremost offering is what? Avidya. The ignorance is offered into the fire of Atmajnanam. Then the Ahankara, the RC, the I-ness, that is followed into the, that is also offered into the fire of Atmajnanam. Then the minus, Mamakara, that is also offered into Atmajnana, fire. So these three are first offered: avidya, ahankara, mamakara. Right? Ignorance, I-ness, and mindness. And with this, therefore, karta, or kartritvam, bhoktritvam, and pramatritvam, they have been destroyed. And once that is gone, what happens? Later on, you have to offer more things: sanchita karma, agami karma, prarabdha karma, and finally, what you call the triangular format. That triangular format itself must be offered as an oblation to this fire of knowledge. All these things taken together. What things? Avidya, ahankara, mamakara, kartritvam, bhoktritvam, pramatritvam, sanchita karma, agami karma, prarabdha karma, triangular format. All these anatmas taken together is what is referred to here as pashaha, the noose or the bondage. So, in simple terms, all of us have, at one time or the other, or even perhaps now, we feel trapped in the current circumstances, unable to break free. This sense of helplessness of being trapped, feeling that life is a burden, that is samsara. And he says that the enlightened Shishya, he burns down all these shackles, dahati, pashaha, in the fire of knowledge. So this is the mantra number 11. We will look at a couple of mantras more before we break.
Acharya.
Yes.
So yesterday we reviewed that Ishvara is a combination of the RCs, Stula, Sukshma, and Karana, RC. When we mentioned that to shift from the triangular to the binary format, when I say I am Ishvara, is referring to this RC combination of Ishvara, or is the Nirguna Ishvara?
Is it? When you say Ishvara, is it? There are two items, you and Ishvara, Jiva and Ishvara. When you say they're equal, What is equal?
The OC. The OC. Okay.
So the RC understands that the reality is the OC. That is what is meant.
Mhm.
Don't ever make the mistake of using the RM in the equation.
Mhm.
Okay.
Thank you.
So now mantra number 12, we will chant. Sa eva maya parimohitatma.
Sa
eva
eva
maya
maya
parimohitatma
Shariram asthaya karoti sarvam.
शरीरमास्थाय करोति सर्वं
Triyannapanadi vichitra bhogaihi.
नादिविचित्रभोगैः
Sa eva jagrat paritriptyameti.
स एव जाग्रत्परितृप्तमेति
So first look at the words. Maya parimohita atma. Again, here atma is mind. That mind, parimohita maya, which has been deluded by maya. Saha eva, he himself. So with the mind which is deluded by the maya, he himself. Who himself? The Paramatma himself. Shariram asthaya, identifying himself with the body. Sarvam karoti, does all karma. Jagrat, in the waking state. Saha eva, he himself. Paritriptim eti, attains fulfillment. How? Striya annapanadi vichitra bhogai, with different forms of enjoyment, different forms of sense organs, sense objects, like stri, woman, annapani, food and drink, etc. Okay, so very nice way of explaining how one has, the Paramatma has begun to think that he is a Jiva. So this is the sample of the Vicharam, how to conduct the enquiry. Okay, now Lord Brahmaji, having given a background, wants to tell the Shishya how the enquiry is to be conducted. So in the next few mantras, he is giving the sample of the inquiry, how it is to be done. So what is the teacher saying here? The consciousness principle, the Chaitanya, which was discussed in all the earlier mantras, especially I think in mantra number 6. So that consciousness principle is one Chaitanyam, indivisible, eternal, etc. And that all pervading consciousness is called Atma, which means the very word Atma is derived in that manner. Apnoti sarvam iti Atmaha. That which pervades everything, that is called Atma. So even though Atma is one, when this Atma is manifesting in a particular RM, the quality of the manifestation, it depends upon the nature of the RM. That we all know, right? The same 220 watts of electricity which the electricity supplier gives you, when it passes through a 0-watt bulb, the manifestation is feeble. But when it passes through the floodlight, a much stronger bulb, it is blazing. Thus, the effect of the manifestation, how the manifestation looks to you, is not dependent upon the original electricity, but it is dependent upon the instrument, the reflecting medium. Here also he says, the same Atman appearing through different types of upadhis will appear different. For example, there is something called a Nishkrishta upadhi. There is Utkrishta and Nitkrishta upadhi, right? So the inferior upadhi, the Atma appears as Jivatma. It is the same Atma, but the reflecting medium is inferior. Therefore, the attributes are inferior. The attributes are appearing because of the upadhi alone. And that inferior attributed Atma, it is called Jivatma. But when the very same Atma appears in a Utkrishta Upadhi, in a superior Upadhi, superior RM, that Atma appears to have very, very superior attributes, and therefore it is called Paramatma. So Upanishad says one should be very clear in our minds that the inferiority or the superiority, it belongs to the RM and not to the Atma. And therefore, I must learn to stop identifying with the reflecting medium. I must learn to look upon the OC as myself and not the RC. The moment I look upon myself as the RC, remember that I have identified with the reflecting medium. The RC is nothing but the manifestation of the attributes of the reflecting medium. So if the reflecting medium is poor, the RC will be dim. If the reflecting medium is superior, the RC will be very, very strong. So this is the enquiry. And therefore, first, the teacher talks about the Atma appearing through the inferior medium. So he says, Sah eva. Sah eva means I myself or he himself. I got to add that. He himself means what? He himself who is none other than Atma, the real self, who is none other than Atma. What happens to him? Maya parimohita Atma. He falls under the spell of Mahanidra. So Mahanidra is a word we use to describe Maya. Alpanidra is a word we use to describe this, your sleep. So Maya is Mahanidra. Alpanidra is sleep. So this Atma, seemingly enclosed by the Upadhi, deluded by Maya, and here we should actually say avidya, because we use the word avidya when we refer to the individual body. So this Atma, seemingly deluded by avidya, is the Jivatma, and his mind is parimohitam. Atma parimohitam. His mind is parimohitam, deluded by what? By Maya, ignorance. And this delusion makes him claim the body as his own self. So he says, Shariram Asthaya. Asthaya, I should take it as Abhimanam Kritva. Asthaya is identifying himself with what? Shariram, with the body. So Brahmaji is saying that I, the Atma, create the world through the Vikshepa Shakti, which is my Shakti because of Maya. And I, Brahman, creator of the world, also create this physical body. The problem is that as soon as the physical body is created, what has happened? I have created the world first. As Brahmaji, as Paramatma, I have created the universe, the Jagat. And then I have created the physical body. And then I enter the physical body. So literally there is a Vakyam, a Shruti Vakyam statement called Pravesha Vakyam, where it says the Brahman, having created the physical body, enters that body. So this is what is meant. Entering the body is nothing other than identifying with that particular body. The moment that happens, remember until now, because I am creating the universe, I am using my Vikshepa Shakti. Then using the same Vikshepa Shakti, I have created the individual body. Then I identify with that individual body. The moment I identify with that individual body, what happens? The other Shakti of Maya is triggered. Avarana Shakti is triggered. Avarana Shakti, what does it do? It covers the fact that I am Brahman. I forget my Paramatma status. I become a Jivatma. And then therefore I have this body. So I have an age, a date of birth, I have a caste, I'm male, female, all these things. And then after that, Sarvam Karoti, I do all sorts of karma. And therefore I become a Karta. Sarvam Karoti means I'm doing all sorts of karma. And therefore I have become a Karta. What is the reason for becoming a Karta? There is only one reason somebody becomes a karta. What is that? For becoming a bhokta, the experiencer. So he says, sa eva vichitra bhogaihi parithriptim eti. So all these various experiences which he gets as karma phalam for that karma which he is doing as a karta, parithriptim eti. He gets satisfaction. He thinks at least that he is happy. And what are the sort of experiences that he goes through? Striya, Annapadi, Annapana, Adi, etc. So Striya, Anna, Pana, Pani, Adi. Stri represents all relationships, including your parents, your wife, your children, your friends, all relationships. Annam is food, drink, etc. So hence, as the Atma, remember that I am a karta and a bhokta, not a doer, not an experience. But identified with the physical body, I am both. I am karta and bhokta. And he says, that is why he says jagrata. It is in the waking state only. While experiencing all these karma phalam, I am also recording in my mind all the experiences that I'm going through. And there is a reason for that. Why? Because in Swapna Avastha, no new experiences are possible. I'm only relaying or replaying all the experiences of Jagrada Avastha. So Swapna Avastha experiences are just replay of all the experiences which have been recorded in Jagrada Avastha. In short, the Jivatma goes through Jagrada Avastha as well as Swapna Avastha. And we have to add as well as Sushupti Avastha. So Jivatma is subject to Avastha Trayam. What is the difference? Aupadika Bhedaha. All differences are caused by upadis. And we all know there are two major upadis, Vyashti Upadi and Samashti Upadi. The Vyashti Upadi is called Avidya, Samashti Upadi is called Maya. So in the context of this mantra, the Vyashti Upadi is being talked about. The all-pervading Atma identifies with that Vyashti Upadi, with the micro Upadi, the limiting adjunct, and for all practical purposes becomes a Jivatma, becomes a Samsari. So this Jivatma is now a slave, a Dasa. But Ishvara, with the macro Upadi, is a Swami. So one is the jailer, one is the prisoner. And this confused Jiva, instead of using the body as an instrument, becomes obsessed with the body as himself, misunderstands the body not as an instrument, but as his own self. And therefore, Sarvam Karoti, keeps on doing karma, keeps on getting karma phalam, keeps on going through all the three avasthas, becoming a karta and a bhokta. Okay. Any questions? All right. In that case, we can do one more verse. So we will.
Acharya.
Yeah.
The Vichitra Bhoga here.
All types of experiences. Various types of experience. Vichitra here, various types of experiences. Not the Vichitra of Hindi.
Thank you.
Sorry, Ravi Ji, hi.
Yes,
in your description of the Jiva,
yeah,
you made it sound as though the Atman or Brahman was a very active karta, creating this, creating that, going into the body and all that. So that is a little bit contradictory.
that is Paramatma basically, because the creator is only Paramatma.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever we talk about creation, we are talking about Paramatma, Brahman plus Maya.
Okay.
So it is Brahman plus Maya who creates the universe.
Okay.
It is the same Brahman plus Maya who creates the individual body also.
Okay.
And that Ishvara enters the body, and now he thinks that I am this particular body's consciousness.
Okay.
That is the Jiva.
Okay.
As Brahman, I mean, using the words Brahman and Ishvara interchangeably, wherever creation is involved, wherever karma is involved, it is always Ishvara. It cannot be Brahman.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, so let us look at the 13th mantra. We will chant. Swapne sajivaha
Swapne
Swapne
Sajivaha
dukkha dukkha bhokta
Sukha
Sukha
dukkha
Dukkha
bhokta
Bhokta
Swamayaya kalpita jiva loke
Swamaya kalpita jiva loke
sushupti kale sakale viline
Sushupti
Kale
kale sakale viline
tamo vibhuta sukha rupameti.
Tamo
Vibhuta
vibhuta
Sukha
sukharupameti.
So look at the word swapne. During the swapna avastha, during the dream, sahajiva, that same jiva, with jiva, with that Paramatma who has now identified with the body and now thinks of himself as Jivatma. What happens to him? Sukha, dukkha, bhokta. He becomes the experiencer of pleasure and pain. Where does he become? Where does he get all the experiences? Jiva loke kalpitaha. Jiva loke, in this world, which is kalpita swamayaya. So Brahmaji is saying that this person, this jiva, he himself has projected that universe, jiva loka. How has he projected? Mayaya swamayaya, using his own maya, which is when this swamaya has to be related to his incumbency as Ishvara, because the jiva cannot create the world. So during his incumbency as Ishvara, Swamaya, by his own Maya, Jiva Loke Kalpitaha, he created this universe, this world, and then he created the body, and then he entered the body and forgot he was Ishvara, and therefore Sahajiva, that same old Jiva, who is none other than Ishvara, what happens to him? He becomes the experiencer of pleasure and pain. Okay, then what happens? Sakale Viline. Sakalam is everything. When everything is resolved, and when is it? Sushupti Kale. So he is not talking about pralayam, because we are talking about the jiva. For the jiva, the daily pralayam is there. So that is Sushupti Kale. In the state of Sushupti, what happens? Sukha Rupam Eti. He attains the state of Ananda. How? Tamaha Abhibhutaha. He is overpowered by ignorance in that Sushupti Avastha. So we all know that Sushupti Avastha has ignorance as a major factor. And because he is ignorant of the fact of what? That he is a Jivatma. Since he is ignorant of the fact that he is a Jivatma, Sukha Rupa Meti, he attains his original state of Ananda. Okay, so Saha Jivaha, that Jivatma who is now under the influence of Maya, of Mahanidra, right? Here we must carefully always recall that whenever we say there is a projection, there are two projections. One is the dream projection, which is done by the mind of the Jiva. One is the Jagrad Avastha, which is also a projection, but it is done by the mind of Ishvara. Samashti mind. Ishvara's mind does the Jagrad Avastha projection, and Jiva's mind does the Swapna Avastha projection. That is why in Shastram you will find that Swapna and Jagrad Avastha are compared and discussed at great lengths. So he says that Jivatma Swapne, he enters the dream state. Having entered the dream state, what happens? The external world, which he created as Ishvara, That external world is no longer accessible to him because his sense organs have now have shut down, right? It is a dream state. Sense organs shut down. Only the dream sense organs are available. The external sense organs have resolved. And therefore, now he enters the dream state where his mind, the Jiva's mind, the Vyashti mind, is operational. What is it doing? It is replaying. It is replaying the experiences recorded in Jagrada Avastha. Remember, the Swapna is an enactment of Jagrada Avastha only. Swapna is nothing but Jagrada Avastha. What has been recorded in Jagrada Avastha, that is being replayed now. That is what he is saying. Swapne enters the dream state where the Vyashti mind is replaying experiences which the Vyashti mind recorded earlier in the Jagrada Avastha, and now it is only replaying those experiences. The same experiences of Sukham and Dukkham, happiness and sorrow, are being replayed. The only difference is that when the experiences take place in Jagrada Avastha, we call it Ishvara Shrishti, because the Jagrada Avastha is a projection of Ishvara's mind. Therefore, in Jagrada Avastha, when you go through happiness and sorrow, it is Ishvara Srishti. But in Swapna Avastha, when you go through happiness and sorrow, the Swapna world is not Ishvara's projection. It is your projection as a Jiva. And therefore, the Sukha Dukha experiences in the dream are Jiva Srishti. And that is why he says, Swamaya Kalpita Jiva Loki. In a world subjectively projected by me, in this very subjective private world of mine, Pratibhasika, subjective world, which Swamaya I created by my own creative power as Ishvara. What happens? It's a travesty. I created the world, I created the body, and now what happens? Sukha Dukkha Bhokta. I become the experiencer in the world which I having created Jiva, the Jiva has created another world. And in that world, I become Sukha Dukkha Bhokta. I become the experiencer, the Jiva Srishti. Okay, then what happens? Sushupti Kali. When the dream is over, he moves into Sushupti. And what happens during Sushupti? He says, Sakale Viline. Ishvara Srishti is no longer available. In Sushupti Avastha, the mind is not available anymore. Therefore, Ishvara Srishti has resolved as it is when you went to sleep. Now, Jiva Srishti also gets resolved when you go into Sushupti Avastha. So, Viline means getting into the Avyakta Avastha, unmanifest state, not destroyed. So, the sleep of a Jiva is called Laya. But the sleep of Ishvara, it is called Pralaya. That is the difference. When we go to sleep, it is Layam. When Ishvara goes to sleep, it is Pralayam. And at this time, what happens? Tamaha Abhibhutaha. I, the Jivatma, I am overcome with ignorance, overpowered. Abhibhutaha, overpowered with ignorance. And I have experiences which are very similar to the experiences which I have in Jagrada Avastha, the Mahaswapna. So there are two Swapnas. Mahamaya, Mahanidra is the Jagrada Avastha. Alpanidra is my dream. And therefore, in that Mahanidra, Mahaswapna, I have certain experiences in the Jagrada Avastha. In this Alpanidra, which is my sleep, I have very similar experiences to that which I have in the Jagrada Avastha. So I get married, I have children, I have problems, and all these are dictated by what? My vasanas dictate the nature of my dreams. And this swapna, it becomes a burden to you when? Only when it is not understood as a swapna. So for the dream jiva, for the dreamer, the dream is a burden, because the dreamer does not know that his world is a dream. And therefore, for him, the dreamer, the dream world is a burden. But the moment he wakes up, it goes away, the burden goes away. He knows it is unreal. You dismiss it, you dismiss the dream world and all your problems in the dream world the moment you understand that it is a swapna. Similarly, the moment I know that this Jagrat Prapancha is only another form of swapna, Mahaswapna, the moment I understand that, I am relieved of all the burdens of samsara. And in Vedanta, we call this Jagan Mithyatva Nishchaya. This understanding that this world is nothing but mithya, or you can also call it Mahaswapnatva Nishchaya. Understanding the Jagrata Avastha as nothing but a great dream. And unfortunately, if samsara continuously exists, our lives will become unbearable, right? So in Jagrata Avastha, there is samsara. We have seen in Swapna Avastha also there is samsara. I am the same jiva in both the places. Only thing is, in Swapna Avastha, I have created that universe and I continue as the Swapna jiva. So I have samsara in Jagrata Avastha, I have samsara in Swapna Avastha. And if you continue with that 24/7 by 365, life will become unbearable. Therefore, Easwara has introduced a small daily break, a brief break in the form of Sushupti Avastha, where samsara is not available. Samsara cannot touch you because Vikshepa Shakti is not active at that point of time. And at that point of time, Sukha Rupam Eti. This Jivatma enjoys happiness. In Sushupti alone, I am abiding in my real nature, which is Atma Swarupam. The only difference is I am not aware of it. And actually speaking, if you look at the two states, Sushupti and Moksha, they are almost equal. In fact, in the Upanishad, in a chapter called the Swayam Jyoti Brahmanam, the teacher gives Sushupti as an example for moksha. He says, Sushupti, you are Advaitaha and Anantaha. There's only one problem. When Sushupti is over, Vikshepa and Avarna Shakti, they again come into play. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Very, very beautiful verses, all meant for deep meditation, nididhyasana.
Om Acharya.
Yes, June.
So we were mentioning that this Jagat is Ishwara's dream. So when I was just wondering, out of curiosity, when, like, does Ishwara gets awake sometimes? And if he gets awake, where he gets awake? Is there is more?
Okay, that dream word has to be understood as projection.
Okay.
It's a different fact that, see, even you project things in your when you're awake also, right? It's called daydreaming. So you can call it Ishwara's daydream.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
He's just projecting the world. Okay, no, you no need to look into what does he do when he's not sleeping, all those things. Yeah. Everybody okay?
Om Acharya.
Yes, Pandra.
Yes. So then, can we say there is some kind of free will in Ishwara's projection?
I don't think you can say that, because why does Ishwara project the world? What is the answer to that? What is the reason that he creates a world?
It's one of the unanswerable, no?
No, it's not unanswerable. It's got a very solid reason for it.
Karma.
Karma.
The world's karma.
The world's karma. Everybody needs to exhaust their karma. And Ishvara's job is to provide the infrastructure for that exhaustion. So he has really no choice. And that's why somewhere it says helplessly creates. I think Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that I helplessly create again and again. He has no choice but to create. But as long as karma is there, creation is mandatory, is necessary.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. So with this, we'll close the day. Thank you for your patience. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you, Acharya.
Thank you.